My name is Woody Walker, and I'm a graduate student in the Virginia Commonwealth University Department of History. My graduate thesis is titled Recovering Lost Voices, the Rappahannock Tribe and the Jamestown Festival of 1957. Today we are at the Rappahannock Tribal Center in the Indian Neck community. Indian Neck is located in King and Queen County on the Middle Peninsula of Virginia. My guest and narrator today is Ms. Barbara Williams, Chair of the Rappahannock Tribal Council. This oral history explores Rappahannock tribal history, particularly during the 20th century, and ideas of cultural preservation, diaspora, and places of origin. Through Recovering Lost Voices, we hope to uncover the memories and meaning the Rappahannock people attach to events like the Jamestown 57 Festival. Ms. Williams, thank you very much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
You're quite welcome.
Please tell me a little bit about yourself. I'd like to know more about who you are before we get into more formal questions.
Okay. That was where I lived at until I moved here in Virginia. I went to high school, went to college. In fact, I went to Rutgers University, and I graduated from there. And wasn't too long after that I got engaged to get married, and I came down here to Virginia in 1973. During the times that I was here in Virginia, it's been a very inspiring and interesting time for me. During my childhood, I was living in a suburban area, and I went to a church, a Baptist church that was there, and had a very good childhood. Just like any teenagers, and as you're growing up, you have your own problems with other students and other people that were in the area. But it was good to be able to associate with others and also to understand your own lifestyle. Even though I wasn't integrated a whole lot up there, but I felt more at home when I would come home to be with my mom and dad. I felt very secure there than I did anywhere else. But I appreciated the time that I had there because of the education that I was able to get and to bring that knowledge back here to Virginia and able to help further on with the tribe and my own family.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You've got some photos you'd like to share with us. I'm interested in seeing now what they are and some of the stories you've got about that.
The very first one I'd like to show you, this is my first regalia that I received. I happened to come down here to Virginia at the time, and they were having a festival in Rappahannock, Virginia. And they invited some members of our tribe that were dancers to participate in this. And I didn't have a regalia at that time, but apparently my aunt contacted my mother and told her my sizes and everything. And when I came down here, my aunt showed me, this is what you're wearing to this festival. And I was like, okay, really? And so she said, yes. She said, all my children are going and you're going along with them. When you had your aunt or uncle or anyone of your family saying you're going to be involved in something, you don't argue about it. And this is what I had and wore at that Rappahannock Festival. And I really appreciated her doing that. It kind of inspired me later on because after seeing what that was actually all about, it caused me to have more interest in being a traditional dancer, which is what I am now. And this is a photograph of probably something even more recent at one of our own powwows where I had actually made my own regalia. And this is a photo of me being in our own powwow here at the Rappahannock tribe. This photograph here, which a lot of people have probably seen in articles or magazines or advertisements. This is when we went to England in 2007 with the 400th anniversary celebration. And this is considered the canoe dance that the Rappahannock tribe has always done. And it was a good pleasure of being there and being able to participate in doing our traditional dances for that time.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Um, will you tell us a little bit about your parents and grandparents, who they were, and some of your memories about them?
Yes, I would. First of all, I'd like to start off with my own parents. This is a picture of them in their backyard when we lived in New Jersey. Um, they were very traditional, but when it came to associating with the public and society, kind of grew into all of that. And they were very elegant in things that they did, and very inspirational to me when I would see them going out to different functions. And they were just an aspiration to me, and to keep up with how things were being done, not only in society, but when we were at home, we were always back to our original culture of things and of doing. This photo right here is a picture of my father when he was probably about 12 years old. He was born in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and how he got there, my grandmother and my grandfather, they both lived here, but because of work and trying to get a job, they ended up going to Doylestown, Pennsylvania. And she was a homemaker up there, and my grandfather was a farmer. But he made more money up there because of the economy that was going on. And that's where my father was born. He had two siblings, and one was born in Doylestown, the other stayed here in Virginia. My other grandmother and grandfather, this is a photo of them. They lived here in Virginia, here in Indian Neck, and their house is still here. In fact, my cousin actually lives in that house. And one of the things that I remember about them, especially my grandmother, when we would come down to visit her, she had very long hair. And I remember sitting out on the porch, and she would be brushing her hair every evening on the porch. And so I came out and asked her if I could brush her hair. And she just adored that, knowing that her granddaughter was just there to communicate with her and just to be with her. My grandfather, one of the memories I remember with him too is the land that he had, and it was so large. It was a farm area, and I remember being able to feed the chickens, and he had cows. I went and milked the cows with my grandmother. They had pigs there, so I was able to help with all of that. All that was fascinating to me because I didn't live on a farm. I lived in a suburban area, and so when I came down here, it was like being in a whole new atmosphere, and it was very refreshing. And I had an aunt and uncle also here that was very close, that lived across the street from my grandparents, and they had a lot of children, so they were basically my brothers and sisters. I only had one sister. Her name is Marie, and so it was good to be able to associate with some of my other cousins, and we had a good time playing on the farm, and especially at nighttime, we would be running around outside trying to scare each other, during the dark times, and so that was very good, and being able to have fun and feeling free, and it made me be able to associate more with nature, which I was not able to do up there. Even though we had some areas where we could visit, but it was not like being down here and being able to be taught what some of the herbs were that were down here and some of the animals that were down here. And so it was fulfilling for me, and it taught me how to appreciate what we have, and the culture that we had before and the culture that we have now concerning preservation of our culture and atmosphere.
Ms. Williams, I want to make sure that I get this. I want to make sure I have your parents' names and your grandparents.
Okay.
Um, and if there's any memories related to your parents or your grandparents, just about memories of them being involved with the Rappahannock community, the Rappahannock people.
Okay.
Thank you.
My grandmother and father here, her name was Lizzie Nelson and Otha Nelson. And they would sit and talk with us quite often about the history of the tribe and where they came from and how it should be going, and never forget who you are, and that we had an identity and a purpose for being here. And because I used to always wonder, why are we so different from everyone else, and sometimes we weren't very well liked. Even as a young child, I could feel that. And but they would tell us that we had a special purpose for being here, and basically it was for others to know how to live and survive where nature was concerned. We're people of the land, and we're supposed to be taking care of the land. And and this reflects into today because of things that I see that are being so destroyed. And they always told us that we had to take care of Mother Nature, because if we took care of Mother Nature, she would take care of us. And that's what I see, during that time. Um, the photos here with my mother and father, my dad's name was Joseph Bird, and my mother's name was Ethel Nelson Bird. And and they believed in the same things, even though they were away from home for many years. Um, they had the same teachings, and so those teachings were actually brought, back to us.
Your grandfather, Otha Nelson, he was chief of the Rappahannock tribe for a while. Am I correct in that?
No, he wasn't chief. That the chief lines actually went into Chief Ann Richardson's line.
Got it. Thank you. Because that name Otha is part of that history that I've read about,
Yeah,
and I get confused.
yeah. There's a couple of them, a couple of the names there, but he was not the chief. No.
Um, Thank you.
You're welcome.
Will you tell us some stories of coming home to Indian Neck for holidays during your childhood? What did it mean to you and your family?
Coming back home was the most exciting thing for me. When I grew up in New Jersey, I felt very isolated. Um, I had friends. I had a very good friend, but it was not like coming back home. I felt more secure when I was at home. I felt more of the love and the friendship that we had with all of our people. And so when we would come home for holidays, it kind of inspired me. I felt protected because I had all my relatives that were here, especially my aunts and uncles and grandparents. It was like I wasn't even supposed to be in New Jersey. I felt that sooner or later I would be coming back down here. Um, but one of the memories of coming here too, like I said, with my grandfather being on the farm, it taught me a whole lot of preservation and how to survive my own self. And I tried to instill these in my children too, and my grandchildren. Um, my parents, that was the only time they got to see their parents. And especially with my father, if it was holidays, vacation time, personal days, anytime, unless they were sick, we made it down here. We never went on vacation anywhere else except for here in Virginia. And a lot of times, if he was needed to come here for a special occasion of some sort, whatever they were working on, as far as maybe something in the school system, or if it was something that was political, they would call on my father. And I believe it was because of the knowledge that he had. He was a graduate from Temple University, and he also went to a Bible university and was very much into the Lord. And he was very helpful in trying to get information that was needed for some of our activities that we were having down here.
Ms. Williams, when you talk about your dad coming down to help with school issues or legal issues, are you referring to things like for the Rappahannock people?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
There were times when we were always trying to get either some health issues that needed to be done or things that needed to be worked in the schools as far as the history being told. Um, if we had federal recognition, that was something that we had been working on for almost 20 years. And when he was needed, he would come down. He would do a lot of research before he would even get here, so he would know how to deal with a lot of these things. But he was always there to help out in any kind of way that he needed to. When it came to racial issues of some sort, he was also involved in that part of it too. And he was very inspirational, I think, for the Rappahannock tribe and the chiefs and assistant chiefs or the his parents or whatever would actually make it a fact to let him know. And even when he was growing up, his parents always had in mind of knowing that he would actually be a spokesperson for the Rappahannock tribe just from his young childhood. And so as he grew older, that dream came true for my grandparents. And he was even doing that, even as he got older and was able to come down for any occasions, he would be a spokesperson for the Rappahannock tribe.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Native American historians are very interested in stories of diaspora, meaning the dispersion of a people from their original homeland. Social and economic causes for diaspora are often analyzed. Possible causes for diaspora often involve racial persecution, such as Virginia's Racial Integrity Act of 1924. Do you think the Rappahannock people underwent a diaspora in the 20th century, especially after World War II?
Yes, I do. Mainly because of things that I went through when I was a youngster. But also, I remember my father talking about this. And he was a World War II veteran. He was in the Army. He was with the 101st Airborne, a paratrooper. And he did not talk too much about some of the incidences that happened while he was in war. But he did say that there was racism even in there. And there were times where he said he would have to be quiet, and not try and get too involved. But then there were times where he felt that he had to stand up for himself. And when he did, it changed things within his area of the Army. And when he got out and he got married and then moved to New Jersey, but even coming down here, it was very noticeable about racism. In fact, there was when I was growing up, it was said that there were no Indians here in Virginia. I remember even when I was young and visiting in a church, we had a Native American pastor that had come there. And when they left, the pastor and his wife, the pastor's wife was from Virginia. And she said, I didn't even know there were Native Americans in Virginia at all. And when she said that, I'm thinking, how could you not know that there was any Native Americans in the area when we've been giving our services up there, knowing that my parents were from Virginia, so that got me thinking as what is going on here. And so as I got older, I found out what that really was. And it continued on even with my parents. And so they were there to try and change things because the change would actually have a lot of influence on the rest of the Rappahannock tribe. And we had to, my father would actually tell us, not to really say a whole lot about that, to keep it to yourself and to do the best that you can because you're here for a purpose and you have identity, and being racist is not part of your identity. That we are a special people, and God has many things for us to be doing. And so that kind of rang in my mind because I felt that we're to love everyone and that we are not different from anybody else, but we are people and we have a right to be heard and be seen, and that we have an identity just like anybody else.
Thank you for sharing that as well. I'm curious if you know about Rappahannock people leaving the Indian Neck area to escape racism, persecution. Do you have any stories that you could share about that? Were there people that left here just to get away from Virginia?
I believe there were some of our people that did that, basically because of maybe if they didn't marry their own people and they married another race, that they would be classified as something else. And I believe that if that was the only way they could get work, I know with some of our people that went north, they actually changed their identity, so that they would be able to get a job. And this is what I would hear my parents would say. And so I do believe that some left because of that.
Something that I'm interested in are the idea of Indian Neck being identified by the Rappahannock community as a place of origin, that this is home. Tell me about your memories or thoughts about the development of Indian Neck as a Rappahannock place of origin.
Yes, it is a place of origin. This actually is our winter hunting grounds. The center is built on the grounds, and this is where our people would stay during the winter time. And they would be near the river, the Rappahannock River, during the summer because that's when they would have more of herbs to be there, the fish, more hunting that would take place in that part. But we would leave from there and actually come here for hunting and being more secure during the winter months. So yes, this is where we are right now.
Thank you. Did your parents talk with you about like the Rappahannock story and Rappahannock history? Did they discuss Rappahannock culture with you when you were a child?
They did to a certain extent. They really didn't dwell a lot on that. We would try and listen to what they would say if they were talking to other adults. But when adults were talking, you and your friend or your sibling or whatever were not sitting around listening to their discussions unless it was something that they actually wanted you to hear. We would be out playing or doing homework or what have you if we were around other adults. That was out of respect for them. And they felt that children should be children and adults be adults during that time.
When they were talking with other adults and you're listening and you're hearing things about Rappahannock culture, Rappahannock identity, How did it make you feel? Did it make you feel part of that community? Um,
I did. I remember my mom when she was constantly having contact with her siblings or other members of the tribe, and they were always concerned about their welfare. Mom was always sending things, mailing things down here. I call it care packages. Um, she loved to sew, and she would sew things and clothes, and she would buy um, food or whatever was necessary if she found out that this person needed that. And so that um, was really something that I couldn't figure out at first why she was always sending things away, and I'm thinking, we need it here, but sometimes she would make that sacrifice, especially during the Christmas holidays. And I felt that was part of our tradition and our culture too, was we're supposed to look after one another and to make sure that everybody is well preserved as possible. And so when I saw her doing that, she would always be giving, not necessarily always wanting something back. And Dad was the same way. If there was something that needed to be done at the tribe or at the church of some sort, and they needed him to do, he would make arrangements so he could be down here for that. And I felt that those things, when we think of a tribe, we're thinking about dancing and maybe warfare or constantly making pottery or beadwork, which is things that we actually did. I had an aunt that actually did pottery and some beadwork, and so, but it's concerning family, and watching the culture that we have and preserving things and being loving towards one another, and that's what I see within my family. That's how I could see things going.
Do you talk about the Rappahannock story and culture with younger members of your family?
Yes, I do. I feel that if we don't talk about that, it would get lost. And the information that's been given to us throughout the years, I feel that we should continue to pass that down to our next generation so that they will not forget who they are, even though these times now are quite different from even when I was growing up. It's more open, they're more out into this society, even though there are things that they participate in, but there's so much more to that. And now that we have federal recognition, it's very important for them to know what we're doing and how they can be a benefit and how they're going to benefit for the future, in the future. I'm sitting here today just looking at some of the things that I have gotten when I was young. And all of this actually means a lot to me because they belong to my grandparents and a great-grandparent. And I'd like to share this with you. The first thing over here is a coconut dipper that my grandfather on my mother's side, her father, actually made this himself. And I remember as a young child coming down to visit my grandmother, because we lived in New Jersey, but we made it an effort every year, no matter what kind of day that we had, vacation times, holiday times, we would make the effort to come down to visit my grandparents here in Indian Neck, Virginia. One of the things that I really was intrigued with was this dipper, because my father lived on grandfather lived on a farm, and he had a well. And I remember always looking in the well and looking at the water down there, and I would always holler down in the well so that I could hear it echo. And that fascinated me because we didn't have a well where I lived at. And so I would just constantly be talking down into the well, but he always had a dipper beside the well so that when they or us children would play, we would always have a bucket that was there that we could put down in the well, bring the water up, and he had this dipper so that we could drink from it. When he passed away and some of the things from the home place were divided among the siblings, this was still left on the well. And I didn't want to take it without someone knowing about it, so I asked my aunt, who was the daughter of my grandfather, and she said, please take that in order to preserve it. And I've had it ever since, and it really means a lot to me. This here is a headpiece that my grandmother on my father's side, his mother, made herself. And I treasure this because this was the only thing that she would wear sometimes, even when I would come to visit her. And she would wear that just to let me know, this is who I am, don't forget it. And I would always laugh at her concerning something like this, and so I always said, can I wear this myself? And she would let me put that on, you know, as I'm sitting there watching her, and I think we just completely enjoyed being with one another, and she would share a lot of things with me, but this is one of the items that she made herself. This here is very precious to me. It's a pouch that was handmade by my great-grandmother on my mother's side. She passed it down to my mother's mother, and then my grandmother gave it to my mother, and it's passed down to me, and I have a daughter, and it will eventually be passed down to her. She's already seeing this, and I've tried to let her know that this will be hers to pass down also. And it's very precious. It's handmade, and it has stayed in very good condition considering the time factors that this has been with us. This here is a necklace that's beaded also, and this little necklace here that looks like it has a little cross on it. This also was made by my grandmother on my father's side, and I treasured this also because I used to try and do some beadwork myself after I saw this necklace here, and I kind of modernized my beadwork while I had this, and so it was an inspiration to me. You know, when I look at all the beadworks that's here, it just tells me of the intelligence that they had, but also being able to have something like this and it come out so beautifully. And they were very talented where this was concerned, but they also had meanings for everything that they would do. And especially this pouch here with the flowers on it, that was part of our traditions anyway, because of being Algonquin. We actually were in the forest, but we also had a lot of natural flowers that we admired, and even with our tribe, you'll see a lot of families are engaged into a lot of flowers. And this headpiece here was also made by my grandmother on my father's side, and she actually made this for my grandfather, and he told her, he said, that looks too feminine, so you need to take it back. But I treasure it anyway because I know of the things that it meant to them and also to me. And I hope that you'll enjoy this. And it's really been a pleasure in being able to present this to you.
Well, I want to thank you sincerely for letting me be part of this conversation, and for working with me and helping me with this research project. I am honored and very grateful to be here today.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. I really enjoyed being with you today, and if there's anything else that I can help you with in the future, please let me know.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
You're quite welcome.